Hello and welcome to SL Chennai Speaks Out Season 2. I'm Sanjay Pinto. When the headline became their bottom line, we all knew that public relations came of age in India, creating that market buzz, waging that no-holds battle for eyeballs, for print space, for internet hits. Today, the $6 billion industry has undergone a metamorphosis of sorts. It's moved from just the press release, it's moved from just public relations to perception, reputation, crisis management. Now, did I say press release? What about dictating news stories? What about planting news stories? That's when the new breed of corporate lobbyists with Neera Radia as its mascot burst on the scene, flaunting their connections in the corridors of power. That's when the influence of the more traditional bodies like the chambers of commerce and industry, many believe, took a hit. But then if you compare this with the West, it's a different story altogether, because their lobbying is not just recognized, it's also openly encouraged. Ladies and gentlemen, not that lobbying is illegal in India. However, the broad spectrum developments in our country has forced the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and even the Planning Commission to come up with the idea of companies actually listing the names of their lobbyists in their annual reports. Is PR another fancy term, a cloak, euphemism for power mongering and perhaps in some case, who knows, even a channel for money laundering? Is lobbying ethical? Is ethical lobbying an oxymoron? On both sides of the divide, we've got first Dorothy Thomas, who is a partner of Kochar and Company. It's a corporate law firm in the country. Seeking to bolster Dorothy Thomas's case is K. Srinivasan, who is the Geo head of Polaris. And both Dorothy and Srinivasan believe that lobbying is completely unethical, should be banned if not regulated. On the other side of the motion, we've got Ashok Thomas, who is the CEO of Adroit Public Relations Private Limited, and Jeffrey G. Thomas, the Chief Programming Officer of Chennai Live 104.8 FM. Both the Thomases, in fact, they are not related to each other. Neither is Dorothy related to them. It's just a pure coincidence. She'll be the doubting Thomas in this show, of course.
Certainly.
Both of them believe that there's what's wrong with lobbying. It's not illegal. So therefore, how can it be unethical? Without much ado, it's on to our first round called First Shot. It's over to KS.
The views that I'm going to express today are mine and necessarily do not reflect the views of my organization, Polaris Software. Having said that, I would like to make a beginning by saying that many people believe that lobbying is very integral to the core process of democracy, and then it must be allowed, and it's a constitutionally given right. I would like to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that I totally oppose this. To me, the meaning of lobbying has actually eroded over time. Today, it's a lot more about it being informal, a lot more about it being very creepy behind the scenes activity. It's a lot more about briefcases exchanging hands behind the curtains and behind the scenes. And to me, it's all about zero transparency and all about it being totally opaque. Also, to me, lobbying serves the interests of special interest groups, right? So the special interest groups, the very definition of special interest groups means that they are meant to serve special interests. And what are those special interests? Special interests are only for those people who are corporates and who want to influence certain behavior, and every piece of information that gets passed on to the powers or the policy makers has an element of bias that's meant to benefit those bunch of corporates. So I'm totally against the word lobbying, and I think a better word for that would be advocacy, and as lobbying is even illegal. So it's like organized bribery or a legalized form of bribery, which is totally unacceptable to me.
All right. Thank you very much, please. Quite a few salvos fired at your side, Jeffrey. Organized form of bribery, he says.
When a product is launched, you have a party, you call all the known people. Is that bribery? I think you're telling people what the new product is all about. Going back to what lobbying means, now everyone does some kind of lobbying for his or her benefit, as long as it is not illegal, as long as you're not treading on someone else's foot, as long as it's not for any monetary gain. So what, I will do it. I mean, if I need to get someone for my radio station, a guest for instance, if I ask Sanjay for a guest, that's not lobbying, that's using influence to get my work done. I don't think there is anything illegal in even talking to KS, as the case may be, if I want a speaker for my radio station. And I'm not doing anything illegal. Now, would you call that bribery? If I come and during the festive seasons, there are a lot of these gifts which are given. Now, that's in the nature of festivities, that's in the nature of goodwill. It's not about influencing people. It becomes bribery when it influences people.
Dorothy Thomas, is Jeffrey giving us a very vegetarian view of lobbying, completely keeping out of its ambit the Neera Radias and the power broking and fixing ministries, at least as it's alleged?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, according to me and according to my team here, it is lobbying is nothing but a fancy word used for corruption. Lobbying is taken various forms. Corruption is taking various forms. Tagged under the avatars of calling themselves as lobbyists, external affairs managers, advocacy groups, and PR managers. Like other countries, several countries, lobbying has been very much streamlined. It has been legalized. It's an industry by itself. Especially under the Indian context, there's no legal status for lobbying. So we don't have a framework controlling lobbying in India. If you take, for example, the United States, and we should take that as an example because that's where perhaps lobbying has been conceived. In the United States, every lobbyist is required to register. Any person who puts in 20% or more of his time in influencing a public officer or public framework or in framing any regulation, he is required to register. We have the famous K Street where is flooded with lobbyists. Now, also he is required to submit reports on every 6 months as to who he met, why he met, how many times he met. We don't have these regulatory framework currently in India. So that's a very, very big drawback. I agree India is a democracy. I agree every person has a right to go forward and influence, provide their views on any policy decisions that's going to take place. But it has to be done in a recognized, in a regularized fashion. So today, because we don't have the legal framework in place, it is my strong opinion that we should go with recognized bodies such as FICCI, such as SICCI, such as the ASSOCHAM, because these are influential bodies, they are well recognized, well governed. We can go forward, put forth our opinions and our views to these bodies, and these bodies can in turn assist with framing of policy, and they've done a commendable job. The recent Competition Act, you must give true credit to these organizations. For the value add that they provided. So according to me today, we either need to regularize the industry by putting the policy in place, or we should just strike it out at this point. They are not required, they're not supposed to in fact enter into this field at all, and just permit these recognized bodies to do the so-called lobbying or so-called assistance in policy framing.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Ashok Thomas, that's a difficult scenario for you now.
Well, thank you, Dorothy, because you have told us now that lobbying is something that's important. The only fact is that we do not have laws in India for it. I think that's a point to be noted. From there, we move on. Lobbying is something that has been a part of public affairs strategy. It has been there for a very, very, very long time, if I'm not mistaken, from 1800 onwards. Now, world over, this is something that has been accepted in all the advanced countries. It may be a private individual, it could be a corporate, it could be a government. This has been an accepted fact. It's not very easy for anyone to meet a decision maker in India or elsewhere. Number two, even if you're able to meet the decision maker, you'll get an audience, you'll spend some time, but you can't consistently sit with him and explain the whole process over a period of time. 3, if you look at a decision maker, yes, he is there, he is well equipped, he is knowledgeable, it's a fact. But that does not mean that he knows everything that's under that vertical. You need people who are able to give him, support him with inputs. You need people who to represent the case, and that's what a lobbyist would do. You have mothers who are lobbyists for their children to reach out to their fathers. Now, why is it a bad word in India? It's a bad word in India because some of us have decided to make it that way. I would say even the media to that extent. India as a country had engaged BGR. BGR is one of the firms in the US since 2005 to lobby for India. The Indian embassy in Washington had paid Boggs another $291,000 for 6 months for lobbying there. The Indian, I mentioned about BGR. Now, the BGR itself has spent $180,000 for lobbying in the US. When I talk about lobbying in the US, it's with US lawmakers, the government departments on behalf of Indian government. 2009, $7 lakh US dollars. 2008, $6,30,000. 2007, $7,20,000. 2006, $6,40,000. Now, what are we talking about? Indian government investing on lobbyists? And in India, we say it's absolutely wrong, unethical. Where are we talking about? The only thing that I can say at this point is lobbying is in the nascent, it's a new industry here. And people have not realized what it is. And when they have not realized what it is, you have all this noise happening. In fact, lobbying, I would put it, I put it the other way around. If you ask where you'll draw a line, I would say it is a decision maker who has to draw the line. He will say, that's it, you leave and go. That's enough. Don't question the lobbyists that way.
All right. Thank you very
point,
much,
but then,
Ashok. Now, we'll come back to that, but he's saying that you don't
Yeah,
realize,
yeah,
you don't realize what it is, which is why you're making a noise.
Absolutely.
Perhaps, as he
I'd like
said,
to counter
as he
him
admitted, you'll come. We'll give you a chance for that. As
Absolutely.
he said, probably you need a powerful visiting card to get past the door. All that and more in our next segment coming up. Cross-examination. Stay tuned.